At dinner with his friends, my boyfriend looked at my outfit and said, "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you," then dumped me and walked out, leaving me with the $347 bill. I smiled and pulled out my phone because what Ryan didn't know was that I'm not just some retail worker he could humiliate. I'm a data analyst who specializes in corporate fraud investigations, and I'd already been documenting his lies for weeks. I'm Emma, 28, and I need to share this story because the aftermath has been absolutely spectacular. You see, Ryan thought he was dumping some helpless girl who'd cry over him for months. What he actually did was mess with someone who has access to corporate databases, forensic accounting software, and a network of investigators who owe me favors. But let me start from the beginning so you understand exactly how satisfying this gets. Ryan and I had been together for 2 years. 2 years of what I thought was a solid relationship, complete with Netflix marathons, holiday dinners with both families, and even that couple's yoga class he insisted on trying. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we were building something real. He had these annoying habits of leaving socks everywhere and making helpful comments about my appearance, like, "That shirt makes your arms look bigger," or "Have you thought about a different hairstyle?" I brushed it off as him being honest, but looking back, it was systematic undermining. Here's what made last Friday's disaster so calculated and cruel. Ryan had never included me in his work life before, always claiming it wasn't professional. So when he texted about dinner with work friends, I was genuinely excited. I went shopping for a new outfit, spent hours getting ready with full YouTube makeup tutorials and my expensive straightener. I arrived at this upscale downtown restaurant, the kind with tiny portions and no prices on the menu, already feeling nervous about the cost. Ryan was already there with Leonard and Pablo, 2 guys from his office. The moment I approached, there was this weird energy. Ryan barely acknowledged me, just a half stand and curt, "You're late." I was literally 2 minutes late because parking was impossible, but he made it sound like I'd committed some major offense. Then he looked at my dark blue dress and announced loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "Oh, you wore that." His friends exchanged this look, and I immediately felt my face burning with embarrassment. The next hour was pure psychological warfare disguised as dinner conversation. Ryan dominated every topic while his friends nodded along like trained seals. Whenever I tried contributing, he either talked over me or explained why I was wrong. When I mentioned a difficult customer situation at my store, he dismissed it with, "She doesn't really get how things work in the real business world," waving his hand like I was a child. For the record, I manage a high-end electronics retail location and handle complex B2B accounts worth hundreds of thousands annually. Then Leonard asked how we met, and I started explaining how his coworker Vanessa introduced us. Ryan cut me off mid-sentence with, "Yeah, Vanessa felt bad for her. I was doing a favor, really." The cruelty of that statement hit me like ice water. That wasn't remotely how it happened. Vanessa had actually warned me about Ryan's ego, but assured me he was a good guy underneath. Clearly, she was wrong. I excused myself to the bathroom, ostensibly to compose myself, but really to start documenting everything. See, here's what Ryan didn't know about me. My day job might be retail management, but I have a master's degree in data analytics with a focus on financial forensics. I freelance for law firms investigating corporate fraud, insurance scams, and financial misconduct. I've helped recover millions in stolen assets and testified as an expert witness in federal court. My harmless retail job was actually my cover for a much more lucrative consulting practice. While in the bathroom stall, I opened the voice recording app I always keep ready for work and started documenting everything Ryan had said with timestamps. Then I noticed he'd tagged himself on Instagram with Boys Night Out like I wasn't even there. Vanessa called immediately, but I sent her to voicemail. I had work to do. When I returned to the table, they were laughing about something but went silent when I sat down. The waiter brought our entrees, and Ryan continued his psychological assault, making jokes about my food choice. I'd ordered pasta, one of the least expensive options because I was already worried about the bill. He kept saying things like, "Carb loading for a marathon?" And "That's a bold choice for someone with your body type." Each comment was designed to chip away at my confidence. Then Pablo asked about some presentation, and Ryan launched into this elaborate story about how his boss loved his ideas, and he was basically running the entire project. Something clicked in my analytical brain. The week before, Ryan had been stressed about this presentation, saying his portion was only 5 minutes and he was nervous about it. Now suddenly, he was the star? I made a mental note to verify this information later. That's when the bill arrived. The waiter set it on the table and Ryan picked it up, glanced at it, then slid it directly to me. I thought he was just showing me the total, but then he delivered the killing blow. "You know what? I don't think this is working. I've been trying to make this work, but I'm just not attracted to you anymore. I think we should break up." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. He was actually dumping me in the middle of an expensive restaurant in front of his friends after 2 years together. When I asked if he was serious, if this was really how he wanted to do this, he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and delivered the line that would haunt him forever. "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize." Then he and his friends walked out together, laughing, leaving me sitting there with a $347 bill for their Wagyu appetizers and premium cocktails. The waiter approached with this look of pity that made everything infinitely worse. But instead of crying, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message that would change everything. The text went to Marcus, my contact at a major corporate investigation firm where I'd done contract work. "Need a favor. Corporate background check on Ryan Mitchell claims to work in marketing at Brennan & Associates. Something doesn't add up. We'll pay standard rates." Marcus owed me from a case where my analysis had saved his client $2 million. While I paid the massive bill with my credit card, mentally calculating how this would affect my budget for weeks, my phone buzzed with Marcus's response. "On it. Give me 24 hours. This is the advantage of having professional relationships that extend far beyond retail management. I called Vanessa from the parking lot, sobbing with rage and humiliation. She arrived at my apartment within an hour with Ben & Jerry's and wine, ready for a full debrief. Between stress-eating cookie dough and ugly crying, I told her everything. She was furious, but also confused by some of Ryan's claims about work. That's when she dropped the first bombshell. "Emma, I don't know how to tell you this, but Ryan isn't who he says he is at work." Vanessa worked in HR at Brennan & Associates. She knew exactly what Ryan's real position was: administrative assistant, not some hotshot marketing executive about to get promoted. He made coffee runs, scheduled meetings, and did data entry. All those business trips were complete fabrications. The big presentation he claimed to be leading, he was operating the slideshow while his boss presented. That night, after Vanessa left, I went into full investigative mode. I have access to databases most people don't even know exist through my forensic work: public records, employment verification systems, social media archival tools, financial background checks. I spent hours cross-referencing Ryan's claims with verifiable facts, building a comprehensive profile of his deceptions. By 3 a.m., I had a 20-page dossier documenting 2 years of lies: fake job titles, fabricated salary claims, non-existent business trips, falsified LinkedIn credentials. The man had been living in a complete fantasy world, and I'd been too trusting to question any of it. But the real evidence would come from Marcus's corporate investigation. Marcus called me early Saturday morning with results that exceeded even my suspicious expectations. Ryan wasn't just lying about his position. He was currently on probation for taking credit for other people's work and might actually be terminated soon. His salary wasn't the $85,000 he'd claimed, but $32,000. Those late nights at the office, fixing important projects. He was frantically trying to correct mistakes before anyone noticed his incompetence. But Marcus had uncovered something even more damaging. Ryan had been falsifying expense reports and using the company credit card for personal purchases. We're talking about potential criminal fraud charges, not just employment issues. Marcus forwarded me copies of the internal disciplinary reports he'd obtained through his corporate contacts. That's when my phone rang with a call from Tina, Ryan's mother. She'd always been sweet to me, remembering my birthday and asking about my work with genuine interest. She sounded concerned and asked if everything was okay between Ryan and me. Apparently, he'd told his family we'd had a little fight, but everything was fine. A little fight? The man had publicly humiliated me, dumped me in front of his friends, and stuck me with a massive restaurant bill. But here's where it got interesting. Tina mentioned Ryan's birthday dinner that Saturday and how the whole family was looking forward to seeing me there. Ryan had told his family we were still together and that I was coming to his birthday celebration. He'd even claimed we had big news to share. I sat in stunned silence while Vanessa stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Ryan was either completely delusional or a pathological liar. Probably both. That's when we formulated the plan that would lead to Ryan's complete social and professional destruction. I wasn't going to just ghost his family. They'd always been kind to me and deserved to know what kind of person Ryan really was. But I also wasn't going to cause a vindictive scene. I would simply attend the birthday dinner as invited and let the truth emerge naturally. The beautiful thing about evidence-based investigations is that facts speak for themselves. Saturday morning brought another text from Ryan. "Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Wear something nice. My parents are excited." I didn't respond, letting him believe whatever narrative he'd constructed. Meanwhile, I was preparing for what would essentially be a witness testimony based on documented evidence. Vanessa helped me choose an outfit, a simple black dress that Ryan had once criticized as making me look average. Funny how his attempts to undermine my confidence now seemed like preparation for this moment. I printed copies of the most damaging documents Marcus had provided, the disciplinary reports, the expense account fraud investigation, the real organizational chart showing Ryan's actual position. I arrived at his parents' house fashionably late, knowing it would irritate Ryan. Multiple cars in the driveway indicated the whole family was present. Ryan's father, Ralph, opened the door with his usual warm smile, ushering me inside. The house smelled like Tina's famous pot roast, and for a moment, I felt genuine sadness knowing this would probably be the last time I'd see these people who'd welcomed me like family. Ryan was in the living room, drink in hand, mid-laugh at something his cousin had said. When he saw me, he froze completely. The color drained from his face as he realized I'd actually come despite what had happened at the restaurant. For a split second, panic flashed across his features before he composed himself and approached with the most obviously fake smile I'd ever seen. He gave me a stiff hug and whispered urgently, "You actually came? We need to talk privately." But I smiled sweetly and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything, especially since you've been telling everyone we have big news to share." Watching the panic return to his eyes was worth every moment of anxiety it had taken to get there. Tina clapped her hands excitedly, asking if this was what she thought it was. Ryan's sister Kayla gave me a knowing look. Ralph started joking about finally getting grandchildren. Ryan gripped my elbow too tightly, trying to steer me toward the hallway, but his mother called out that dinner was ready. As we sat around the dining table loaded with Tina's incredible cooking, Ryan nervously watched my every move while trying to control the conversation. I just smiled and passed the bread rolls, enjoying how his left eye twitched every time I opened my mouth. When Tina mentioned how proud they all were of Ryan's promotion, I nearly choked on my water. Ryan launched into his usual fabrications about crushing targets and being groomed for senior management. That's when Ralph asked about the Johnson account, apparently some huge deal Ryan had been discussing with his father. Ryan's answer was so vague it could have been a horoscope, something about strategic pivots and leveraging core competencies that meant absolutely nothing. His sister Kayla, who had always been the family skeptic, caught my eye and raised an eyebrow as if to say, "Is he for real?" The doorbell rang at the perfect moment. Tina answered it, and I heard her delighted. "Oh, Cody, what a surprise." Ryan looked like he might actually pass out. Cody worked in Ryan's department and had been part of Marcus's information network. He walked in with a professional folder, apologizing for interrupting, but claiming he had urgent work documents Ryan needed to sign for Monday. Ralph insisted they could handle work matters right there at the table, since we're all family. Cody sat in the empty chair I'd strategically saved beside me. That's when Ralph asked Cody how the big presentation had gone, the one Ryan had apparently been leading. Cody looked confused before catching on, glancing between Ryan and me as he made a decision. "The presentation went well," Cody said carefully, "but our boss delivered it with Ryan and the team providing support." Ralph looked puzzled, saying that wasn't how Ryan had described it. I jumped in strategically, asking Cody about Ryan's recent promotion. Poor Cody looked uncomfortable, caught between workplace loyalty and not wanting to lie to an entire family. The silence that followed was deafening when Cody finally admitted that Ryan was an administrative assistant in the marketing department. Ralph put down his fork slowly. Ryan's grandmother made a small sound of disapproval. Kayla muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "I knew it." Ryan went into immediate damage control, claiming Cody was confused, that he had multiple roles, that it was complicated. But the dam had broken. His family started asking specific questions he couldn't deflect. "When did you get promoted? Why did you say you had a team? What about that corner office you mentioned?" That's when I delivered the killing blow. I calmly explained everything, how Ryan had invited me to meet his friends, how he'd belittled me throughout dinner, how he dumped me in front of everyone and walked out, leaving me with a $347 bill I could barely afford. Ryan tried interrupting, but his father shut him down with a look of pure disappointment I'd never seen before. Cody confirmed my story, adding that he'd heard Ryan bragging to coworkers about putting me in my place. He even showed text messages from Pablo discussing what had happened. When Ryan tried painting himself as the victim, claiming I had embarrassed him in front of colleagues by not fitting in, his grandmother actually snorted with derision. That's when Ryan completely lost it, full tantrum mode. He accused me of turning his family against him, called Cody a traitor, claimed everyone was jealous of his success. He knocked over his water glass, pointed at me, and repeated that same devastating line. "A girl like you should be grateful I even bothered with you." His mother gasped in horror. His grandmother said something that was definitely old-fashioned swearing. His sister just shook her head like she wasn't surprised. I stayed calm and replied that the only thing I was grateful for was finally seeing who he really was. Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so hard that one of Tina's decorative plates fell and cracked. But here's the beautiful thing. Instead of awkward aftermath, his family insisted I stay for cake. We sat there, Ryan's ex-girlfriend, his coworker, and his family, eating birthday cake without the birthday boy. After helping Tina clean up, I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Sunday morning, I woke to 13 missed calls from Ryan's family and Cody. Apparently, Ryan had gone on a complete rampage after leaving the dinner. He'd shown up drunk at another ex-girlfriend's apartment at 2 a.m., ranting about how I'd ruined his life. He'd sent threatening messages to Cody about ruining him at work. Most concerning, he'd posted my address in private messages, saying he was going to make me pay for humiliating him. But Ryan had made a critical error. You see, threatening someone who works in corporate fraud investigation isn't wise. I have relationships with cybercrime specialists, employment lawyers, and data security experts. Within hours, I had screenshots of all his threatening messages, documentation of his harassment patterns, and a preliminary restraining order filed through my legal contacts. More importantly, Marcus had forwarded all the evidence about Ryan's expense account fraud to the appropriate authorities. Ryan wasn't just facing termination. He was looking at potential criminal charges. The corporate investigation revealed over $15,000 in fraudulent expenses over 18 months. By Monday morning, Ryan's world had completely collapsed. He was terminated for cause, meaning no severance package and a permanent mark on his employment record. His threatening behavior toward multiple people had triggered a criminal harassment investigation. His social media meltdown had created screenshots that would follow him forever. The final update came 3 months later. Ryan had been forced to move back with his parents after failing to find employment due to his damaged reputation. The fraud investigation resulted in restitution requirements that would affect his finances for years. Multiple restraining orders from different people he'd threatened meant he couldn't go near several locations around the city. Meanwhile, my strategic handling of the situation had impressed Marcus's firm so much that they offered me a full-time senior investigator position with a $95,000 starting salary and comprehensive benefits. My methodical documentation and professional approach during a personal crisis demonstrated exactly the kind of analytical thinking they valued. The strangest outcome was my unexpected friendship with Cody, who provided crucial testimony for both the employment termination and criminal harassment cases. We grab coffee sometimes and text about work stuff. He witnessed the entire Ryan saga and understands why I now thoroughly background check anyone I date. Looking back, I'm genuinely grateful Ryan showed me who he really was before things went further. Imagine if we'd moved in together or gotten engaged. His public humiliation of me at that restaurant was actually the best thing that could have happened, because it triggered an investigation that revealed years of lies and illegal behavior. Ryan thought he was destroying some helpless retail worker who'd cry over him for months. What he actually did was cross a forensic analyst who specializes in exposing fraudsters and building airtight cases against people who think they're untouchable. The $347 restaurant bill he stuck me with was the most expensive mistake of his entire life.